So my take on the cohabitation is that it's a good thing for couples to have that adjustment period be smaller than it would be if they happen to just be in separate households and then all of a sudden get married and be in one household, have all those things connected to each other. The period between cohabitation is much smaller because you'll have lived with that person for a long time and you'll know their quirks and their negative qualities and their positive qualities, and you'll be ever better understanding of who they are and whether you can make the relationship work. And there's a smaller adjustment period between living together and married, between not living together and then living together. The next topic that I chose to research about was intermarriage. An article by Mona Shalabai did an article writing about what affects the likelihood of intermarriage, and one of the big ones she talked about was the attitude that people had about intermarriage. The survey that she talked about said that 72 black respondents said they would be fine if a member of their family married a different person than their race. Now, this sort of correlates with Sterling's information that the intermarriage between whites and African Americans has increased over the years. The article also talked about Asian Americans increasing their intermarriage between whites due to their emigration from the East and coming to the West, and that also correlates with the increase in intermarriage between Asian Americans between Asians and whites over the past few years. My interaction with intermarriage mostly comes from my family. My Aunt Jane happened to marry a man from El Salvador named Carlos. They met when she was a U.S. Marshal and she was down in McAllister getting an MBA in international sales. They met there. Carlos was only in the United States for his education, and so when he graduated, he had to go back to El Salvador, and Jane went with them. They got married before they moved, I believe, and after a couple of years, Jane got pregnant down in El Salvador, but El Salvador was becoming less safe. There was a lot of civil wars and government protests, and so she decided to move back up to the U.S. in Minnesota. But unfortunately, Carlos had to wait for the immigration process to go through. But as I said, there was a lot of government protests and civil wars happening in El Salvador, so that took a really long time for that to happen. When my mother told me the story of how they met, she said that the family was a little bit shocked that Aunt Jane was marrying a man from El Salvador that they had never met before. But once they interacted with him and met him and realized how kind he was, they were pretty much okay with it. The next topic that I chose to research about was elderly care. The article by Maggie Flynn talks about the satisfaction levels between nursing homes, assisted living, and at-home care, and what level of satisfaction that the elderly patients got while receiving each of those cares. She found in the information done on the survey of over 72,000 people done that more people had satisfaction levels with people who were in at-home cares than people who were receiving care at nursing facilities or at-home or assisted living facilities. Sherlin correlates this information well with the increase in people wanting to keep their families at home and having them be taken care of than having them at facilities. My experience with this sort is my grandmother took a fall last year, and we had to make the decision to either have her recover in an assisted living nursing home style or have the family come around and build together a schedule to have at-home care. We ultimately decided that it would be better to have at-home care, and my grandmother, who is 92, felt that she would be much better cared for by her family members than those that she could receive in Shoreview at the nursing facility. What actually happened was pretty surprising for a woman of her age. My grandmother has had frozen shoulders for most of the last, I believe, 12 years, but due to the physical therapy and the constant, support from family members, she's actually been able to get stronger, and has been let off of some of the medication that she is currently on because of her increase in health. So, based on this study, all the changes that um, people have gone through to decide whether to do nursing homes or living or at home care, we can see that the change to at home care actually improved the quality of life for my grandmother, and we can extrapolate from that and say at home care might be better than at a nursing facility or assisted living. Now, change is something that we can see in each of these topics in the relationships, especially with childless couples, marriage trends, elderly care wanting that change for the better of the of an individual, intermarriage, the better of all the diversity in a group of people. Basically, what you can take away from my paper is that people are always trying to fight for something better for themselves or for other people. I think the change we see today may be strange, but when past generations fought for change, it was also unsettling and strange. So, any changes that we make today, we should know that even if they are strange or unsettling or may not be comfortable for us, they are ultimately for the benefit for our future world. Thank you for listening to my paper. Have a nice summer.